Today, I want to talk about something that came up as I was reviewing the distinction between when I first started my business and kind of where I am today. And I think that this happens often when a solopreneur has the ups and downs of an irregular pipeline. And there are a lot of ways to deal with that as we look at the hidden realities of being a solopreneur. There's a lot of irregularities that you're going to experience throughout your growth as a solopreneur, as well as how you're running your business. And a lot of these kind of awarenesses that you'll be getting will steer you in a better direction to not only further define your company, your brand, the service offerings, and the solutions that you provide, but it'll also help you feel better about the work you are doing and the value that you are bringing to the table. So let's go ahead and get into talking about over-delivering as a form of self-protection. Interesting topic, right? All right, let's get into it. Welcome to My Solopreneur Life. I'm Terry Pappy, your gracious host, and I am so glad you're here. I have a wonderful episode for you. Sit back, relax, and let's have some real talk about what it is to be a solopreneur. Now, as I talk about over-delivering as a form of self-protection, I'm really referencing my early days starting and running my business. And I started my business after a layoff, working in corporate for many years. And because I was a creative director of the web team for Marriott Vacation Club and handled a lot of brands, and I had a small team, et cetera, worked with the developers, it was still a creative, tactical thing that I was doing for Marriott. I was building the websites, I was working with the internal customers and so on. And so I knew, tactically, how to build these things, how to create images, how to build an HTML page, etc. And one of the things that I became known for was building websites, as simple as that is. So when I was laid off, as they were going through a reduction in force in the company, I realized that this was something that I was not only known for, but what I felt comfortable. It was like my comfort zone. And I knew that I could build and develop and deliver a really good product. Not only that, but it was built upon decades of working in communications and making everything from a print piece to a website to all kinds of different things. Being hired as a tactician or as a vendor was kind of how I got started. I hung my shingle out as a freelancer. And because I was so diminished at that point in my life from the standpoint of being laid off, because that hits your ego really hard. And it was 18 months after my husband passed away from a long illness. So I was pretty much, I felt like a doormat as far as my confidence was very low. And I wasn't sure I was going to be able to be successful. And so I didn't really think much of myself because I was going through, on a personal level, a lot of challenges. And everyone starts their solopreneur business very differently. Some are more deliberate, intentional about it. They have a business plan. They know where they're going to go and what they're going to do. It could be a complete deviation from the work that they used to do in corporate, or it could be right in line with that because they know that's what they're known for. And that's their network that they want to start leveraging. So everybody comes in a little bit differently. Some solopreneurs are reluctant solopreneurs, kind of like I was. And I'm not ashamed of that or feel bad about that. I think I have had quite a journey in my nearly 20 years, going on 21 this year, of being on my own and running this business in the craziest way that I could ever imagine. And to this day, I'm still amazed that I'm able to support myself and run this business by myself. Now, When I started doing the work that I did, because I had such a low confidence level, I didn't know if I could deliver something on my own outside of the corporate environment that people would be satisfied with and that would be effective. So I over delivered like crazy. I would do so much more for my clients as I started to get clients, which were mainly people that already knew me, either from corporate or that somehow got referred to me. Because it was slow in getting started. And I've already shared the story about my first clients and so on. But as I was in my second and third and even fourth year, and I was like, okay, this is going to stick. This is what I want to do. I really love this. I love working with clients. I love building these things for them and getting them from point A to point B successfully. And this is even before I came up with the models that I use today. This was more of a survival thing for me that actually started to turn into a viable business that I could really make sense of and deliver with success. And that's what was happening because I worked my butt off. When it came to over delivering, and I frame it like a sense of self protection, that was partly driven by some of my personal lack of confidence and insecurities based on being laid off and losing Chuck and stuff. But it was also because I wasn't sure what I was doing for them was as good as it could be. And that was all living in my head because, believe me, the stuff I was delivering back then was pretty darn good. And it got them to where they needed to be and then some. But the over delivery was taxing. The over delivery was something that was coming from not such a healthy place. And it took me a while to realize this because one of the byproducts, and this may have happened to you, and if not, just be aware, and I'll give you some tips on how you can take a look at this from a more objective standpoint so you can be more successful and avoid doing this. Because this is all on us solopreneurs. If we start doing this, we're not able to calibrate the expectations or manage them with our clients and customers. And that's a problem because then we end up being branded or known for something that we don't really feel is appropriate for the solution that people are trying to achieve in their businesses when they come to us for help. What I used to do in my over delivery is like I'd build a bigger site or I'd offer to do something else or, oh, let me design you a logo and I won't charge you for that or something like that. So I was giving away things because I felt like I needed to kind of like, I don't want to say claw my way into creating value for them so they would keep me as a resource. I'm not really sure because it's been a long time and my mindset, my confidence are in a completely different place, thank goodness, today than they were back then when I was first getting my sea legs, if you will. But it was one of those things where the byproduct of that was where I was actually attracting bad clients, like poorly fit clients. And I think that was maybe mucked up or tied into my own identity as far as like, I have to clean up these messes for these people and this has to be a struggle. And from a psychology standpoint, I don't want to overthink it, but there's always something there about confidence. That's what it always seemed to root into was my confidence and my ability and my own capacity to run a business successfully and fairly, not only for me, but for my client. And so I remember I had attracted, and I'm very much a believer in like attracts like, right? So if I'm thinking I have to work really hard, I have to be taken advantage of, I have to bend over backwards for my clients because otherwise they won't hire me or whatever the story was, that belief system that I had in my head back then started bringing in clients that were really not a lot of fun to work with. And I remember one in particular, and this was somebody I worked with at Marriott who knew me. He was not in my division, but he was in a different part of the business. And he ended up getting laid off as well. And he came to me for, to start his consultancy. And he had all these great ideas. And, I was starting to get a feel for how I wanted to work and the solutions I provided, not quite where it is today, not anywhere near actually. But I was helping him kind of come to those conclusions. I don't even think that I had figured out the qualitative research that I do, the discoveries I do with my clients, which was a big transformation for my business when I started doing that. It was remarkable. And I remember one day, and I was working with him, and I was so happy to have him because he had a lot of things that I was doing. I was doing a branding package for him. I was building a website for him. And I think I was even doing some print pieces for him as well. I loved designing print, still do, but not a lot of people do a lot of print things unless they're, having it as a PDF download or something like that they'd eventually like to have printed formally. And so I remember one day, oh gosh, I'll never forget it because it made such an emotional impact on me in two ways. One, I realized I attracted the situation as far as I attracted this person to come and show me how I was showing up in my business. And that collision made me realize I don't have to be treated a certain way in order to be successful in business. And this particular client had been in the military. I think he was a Marine or whatever. So he had a very interesting way of communicating when he was upset about something or when he wasn't understanding fully. So whatever was going on that triggered this behavior, he would start yelling at me on the phone and almost like a parent, scolding me like, I can't even remember half the stuff, but it was very upsetting to me because I'm like, okay, dude, like, this is not how I want to work with my clients, right? This is a business transaction. We're trying to figure this out together and I'm delivering everything. So it was nonsensical to me. And I also just didn't like being treated that way. And so he did this initially, and it kind of just shocked me a little bit that he just out of the blue started yelling at me on the phone. Got him to calm down. And I remember thinking after that, why did that happen? What did I do? And so, I'm always going, oh, what did I do wrong kind of thing, which is just part of my nature. And I was like, I don't want to work with somebody like that. That's not how professionals behave. That's not how people treat each other from the standpoint of, here I am trying to help you. And yes, you're paying for my assistance, but it doesn't have to be that way because we both wanted the same outcome. I don't even remember what he was so upset about. It's just one of those things where he got ticked off about something. Who knows? It could have been something completely unrelated to what I was doing, and he just took it out on me, if you know what I mean. But I think what attracted that situation was my attitude about my value, my self-worth. And I think that there was probably some money pressures, like I have to put up with this in order to get paid. And so I had all these very not healthy belief structures because I didn't have very big confidence back then. And that's just kind of how it started showing itself to me. Well, let me tell you what, the second time he pulled that crap on me, where he just went off and just was a jerk on the phone, yelling and screaming. And I'm like, okay. And I said, listen, and I'm not going to say his name because I don't want to besmirch him, but I said, listen, I can't work this way. And if this is how you're going to communicate with me, toward me, which is very disrespectful and ineffective, we can't continue to work together. And so there was a point in the work that I did that I said, this is not how I want to work. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the rest of this work and I'm going to hand it off to another designer who was able to finish it. I think I'd built the website and the branding and everything, but there was a couple other design related things that needed to be completed. And I recommend that you continue to work with him. So I'm going to stop our work now. I'm going to send you an invoice for whatever was remaining. I think I probably even gave some stuff away or didn't bill him. I don't know. I wanted so badly to be free of this guy because I didn't like how he treated me. I didn't like everything that he was saying because it was contrary to what I was expecting from a client. And I was delivering some real value to him. So that was the end of that. He did apologize later. He apologized actually on that call. And I said, but yeah, we can't, you can't say I'm sorry and then us continue to work together because it's like the damage, the damage has been done and I'm ready to move on. So here, go work with this guy over here. And he ended up working with him and finishing that whole thing. So I don't know what the dynamic was that brought this behavior out in this particular client, but it was very uncomfortable for me. But here's what it did. It made me realize that I don't have to put up with that type of treatment or tolerate a type of client that's a poor fit, or that I have to do things or over deliver, because I deserve better. And so does that person, because they're only going to get the best out of me if we only work together in a partnership versus I'm the boss and you got to do what I tell you to do the way I want it and blah, blah, blah. And that is not how I work. So it was good for me to, first of all, realize that I deserve better. It also created a new distinction in my brain about my confidence was so low. I need to work on my confidence. I need to be able to say no better. The awareness that I got just by going through that experience was enough to get me to completely shift how I showed up on future client engagements. It helped me shore up and build my confidence because I did the work that I needed to do as far as self-examination, looking at those things, and really just kind of creating my future vision. And this leads me into what I want to convey in this particular episode as far as how you can look at what are you doing that you're over-delivering as a form of self-protection. If you're afraid that somebody is not going to give you business, so you over-deliver. This is actually a really common thing with solopreneurs because we don't have any real definition or scope, or we haven't really spent the time to put boundaries around what do we do, how do we work with our clients, where do we draw the line as far as what we're able to do, and why do we want to cross that line? What is the insecurity? What is the doubt? What is the worry that makes us over-deliver or do something that makes us feel desperate to keep that business or to keep that relationship intact? Because here's the deal. As solopreneurs, we're doing everything. One-person business owners are responsible for all of it, whether you have subcontractors or you want to start hiring people or whatever. At the end of the day, the buck stops here with us. When we make these kind of decisions, we have to sort of look out for ourselves. And we have to create those guidelines, those boundaries, so we are doing what we're expected to do from the client, as well as working within our strengths and the value that we're really providing. As a prompt for this episode, look at areas or relationships with your clients that perhaps may have gone into that area of over delivery, or where communication wasn't clear, or where a client may not have been totally respectful to you or professional with you in whatever way. And that can take the form of, like, this guy who was berating me on the phone about the work we were doing together. It can also come in the form of like a passive aggressive thing where your clients don't get back to you. They ghost you. They don't work with you to come up with a solution in a true partnership fashion. When you step back and analyze, okay, what was my role in this situation? Why did I over deliver? What was I afraid of? What did I not like in that exchange? What made me feel uncomfortable? We have to stop and do that self-examination and look at what responsibility we need to take for part of the result. And that could be taking responsibility with your attitude and your belief system around how you show up as a one-person business owner. Where is the lack of confidence like I had? And it was because I was kind of thrust into one-person business ownership and I was trying to figure it out. And I wasn't a business person. I was a tactician. I was a creative, am a creative, still am to this day. And so for me, I had to come up against that conflict and that uncomfortable situation for it to become visible for me and push me to take responsibility for my part in it, which was attracting a client that was a poor fit, that treated me poorly, because they really are mirrors to our own belief systems, our own attitudes about who we are and what we bring into the world as professionals. And so when you do that self-examination, you're going to see where the gaps may be, and just write in your journal about it or think about it or talk to somebody about it and say, I really never thought about this, but I seem to be attracting the same kind of client, or I seem to be coming up against these issues with existing clients. Now, if you're at the point where you're still working or you had a corporate job and you're thinking about being a solopreneur, you can do the same thing, but because you don't have clients, go back into your corporate experience. Where has that happened there? Because this is like a subconscious belief system that's going to come with you into your business if you are going to do that. So it's better to head it off now than have to deal with it when you finally start getting to the point where you're realizing it with poorly fit clients. So remember, our belief systems as solopreneurs are on full display when we're running our business and interacting with clients, because we have to deliver value, we have to serve, we have to be in business, we have to transact, and that means we got to work with other people. Working with other people will always bring those lessons, if you will. It's not the best word I could use for it, but they're bringing lessons to us to help us become better about who we are in business, more effective, make more money, get great clients, great engagements, and make it, instead of a heavy lift, it can be something that's fun and enjoyable and a true reflection of what we're about and our purpose in being a one-person business owner, which is so important. And it's such a wonderful way to live in the world and execute your gifts and talents and your passions and help a lot of people. Take a look at it from those perspectives. Ask yourself, am I really over-delivering as a form of self-protection? What do I believe to be true about how I show up in these situations? Am I being strong in how I negotiate with clients and opportunities? And am I really shining the way I want to shine? Or am I being subservient to this particular client because I'm afraid they're going to walk, or I'm afraid they're going to say something bad to a potential future client of mine? So take a look at those things and don't make the same mistake I did by attracting somebody who's going to yell at you on the phone, which is not a fun experience. Anyway, I hope this episode, as weird as it was something that can help guide you along your path of being a solopreneur. Thanks a bunch. See you in the next episode. Well, I know you're disappointed, but that's it for this episode. Listen, the great news is there's another one coming, so stay tuned. Anyway, I just want to make sure that you do the prompt, if this episode had a prompt, and you get that homework done because you're going to be a better solopreneur. How's that for a maternal finger shaking at you? Hey, listen, thanks so much for being here, for giving me time of your day, and, for taking it on. So if you want to learn more and stay connected with me, just head on over to mysolopreneurlife.com. Thanks a bunch. See you soon. That was pretty good. I think I'll keep that one.